there are thousands of different types of bacteria in your gut. There's a whole world of bacteria. There are more bacteria than there are cells in your whole body. There is more DNA from bacteria in your gut than there are DNA in your whole body, your DNA. So people have said it's so weird. It's kind of like we are just a spaceship for our bacteria, and our bacteria are like another world, like a whole nother world living in, and we just carry them around and feed them, and kind of like the earth feeds us, right? It's kind of like that. We are the earth to our bacteria.
Okay, welcome everyone to the Healthy Heart webinar. Okay, Dr. Saunders was just sharing something with us. Can you talk about that, or is that not something we can talk about? I don't know why
Well,
we can.
I think we can. It's, Quest Diagnostics has this new program for tests, because a lot of the things we've been talking about, you need this test and that test, and people are like, how do I get those tests? My doctor won't order those tests because they don't know how to interpret them, and so they won't order them for me.
Yeah.
And that's part of the thing, is the doctor takes responsibility for any test that they order. But Quest has this new program, any patient, any lab, and you can order it through certain, I guess, physicians, or even like alternative practitioners. And if you don't have insurance, or you don't want to run it through your insurance, it's pretty cheap. Like I was just telling them, I was looking at some of the costs. Like a $30 CBC is only like $4.80. It's like a lot less. It's not just like a 50% discount. It's significantly less.
Well, and that is really nice too, because if you, for example, like I was looking back at the last time I got like my hormones checked and thyroid and some different things, and it would be nice to check those more frequently if they weren't so expensive, you know?
Yeah.
So that could be really great.
I mean, you do your A1C every 3 months, or you're supposed to. So why wouldn't you do other labs every 3 months if your body's fluctuating with hormones and what have you? I think we'll need a link for that, Dr. Saunders, once you can get.
Once it comes in. I just signed up for it, and they said it's going to take a few weeks to
We did a lot of people going, yes, please.
Yes.
Yeah. So I'm thinking, because they say anywhere in the country, like any state. So they signed me up in California and then just duplicated for 50 states. And so I don't know. We have people coming in from Colombia and Canada. I don't think that's going to work, but I don't know. Do you have Quest labs in Canada?
Yeah. Well, and their system's a little bit different there, so who knows?
Yeah. Oh yeah, they can. Yeah.
Wow, though, that is really exciting. And especially for the things that we talk about on these webinars. You are you really like testing, because then you get to know the facts. You get to see where a patient is at that moment.
Yeah.
And so we talk about that a lot. If you guys have joined us on our fixed blood sugar webinar, we have this list of 4 tests that we comment, or we often talk about. And boy, it'd be nice to be able to get those, because people will say, I asked my doctor to do these, but he wouldn't, or they didn't know what it was. And we talk about that too, even, on this webinar as well. Just some of that testing is very important. So,
And
we didn't, go ahead.
Oh, sorry. I think Dr. Saunders in the past has mentioned life screening. Is that correct? Where you can go and they can do sort of all the tests for you, instead of your doctor saying, all right, go here and get your calcium score, go here and get your ultrasound. Life screening kind of does it all.
Yeah. I often refer people to Lifeline screening for those kinds of basic screenings of the ultrasounds of the arteries and EKG, those kinds of things. That's really for vascular or cardiovascular disease is what they're looking for.
And we were just talking about Quest and how Quest is changing. Christine asked about this. Yeah, Quest is changing how their tests and apparently even their costs for many across the country. We're going to look into that some more.
Yes, very exciting. Okay. A couple of people talking about some of the different testing that they've done. Ultra testing. Oh, someone did do the life screening. It's more of an overview, but it gave me the info I needed to get more
Yeah.
tests,
Yeah.
which I think is good. And you know what? We should have just done a webinar on testing.
Mhm.
But another thing that I have appreciated with Dr. Saunders too is I have done a few different types of testing. I think I did some through 10x Health. And then we did some through, who's our testing through this last time, Cheryl? Our team did testing with our
Well, through Whoop, it's a band, it's a metrics band. I don't know who
the
they,
own it testing
yeah,
stuff that we
Own
did. I
It
can't remember.
is our
Um,
coaching we use. They did testing, they did
yep.
DNA testing for us.
And I love that Dr. Saunders reminds me that just because your DNA says you may be
Mhm.
predisposed to things doesn't mean you have to settle for that fact, right?
Amen.
And that isn't the final authority, you know. So I just appreciate that about Dr. Saunders too. So if you ever do any of those, remember that doesn't mean you have to have whatever it says. And some of it I knew wasn't true for me, which was very interesting. So kind of fun. Anyway, all right, let's move on. Let's move on from the testing. We're actually going to talk about another one of my favorite topics today, the gut, the gut biome.
Yay.
And boy, I don't really know a lot of people who don't have questions about what's happening in their gut. So this could be a very hot topic, but we also want to talk about how it relates to our heart. Is there a connection? And we just want Dr. Saunders to give us maybe an education on maybe some things that he's finding in all of his studies. So before we get started, I just want to remind you that Dr. Saunders is not your doctor. So the things that we talk about today, we would recommend that you talk with your health care provider first before you implement any of these
Or,
suggestions.
or tell them. Don't ask
Yeah.
them.
By the way, I am going to do this. So, yes, I have to say that disclaimer. And also, though, in all fairness, Dr. Saunders will say he doesn't know your story. You know, he doesn't know everything that's going on in your life. He doesn't know, he may tell you to do this while you have significant stress in your life, and this won't even help because you're so stressed out. You know what I mean? Like, there are a lot of factors in people's lives. So, that's why we try to cover a lot of different things on these webinars so that we can get a whole picture. One of the things that I love in our Healthy Heart Solution Kit is that we talk about all of those things. So if you hear us mentioning that book, that is the book that the Barton team and Dr. Saunders have put together to help people keep their heart healthy or reverse some health issues. And stress is a really big piece in that book. And we talk a lot about that, as well as how to eat, including fiber, exercise, all of those things. But today, we're going into the gut health. We're going to go there. So who knows what's going to happen on this webinar? It could get weird, but ooh, wrong transitional word. All right. Let's go, Dr. Saunders. You tell us all the things.
Okay, so the thing about the intestines is the answer to every question is we don't know. We don't know. We don't know anything. There are thousands of different types of bacteria in your gut. There's a whole world of bacteria. There are more bacteria than there are cells in your whole body. There is more DNA from bacteria in your gut than there are DNA in your whole body, your DNA. So people have said it's so weird. It's kind of like we are just a spaceship for our bacteria, and our bacteria are like another world, like a whole nother world living in, and we just carry them around and feed them, and kind of like the earth feeds us, right? It's kind of like that. We are the earth to our bacteria, and because it's not just bacteria. There's bacteria, there's viruses, there's phages, there's all kinds of organisms, fungus and molds and yeast living in the intestines, and the interaction between them is really important. They fight each other, and they like each other, and so there's some work together and some are like fighting, and it's a really, like, it's a whole world, and it's a lot of information. And so the fact is we don't know. So why do they do like these tests, like the people do a biome test, and it'll tell them, oh, you have this and this and this problem, and all of these things, depending on what your gut bacteria. How do they know that? Here's what they do. They take a whole bunch of people and they look at their gut microbiome, and they say, well, if you have this Firmicutes type of bacteria, you tend to have problems with inflammation. If you have the Bacteroidetes, then you tend to have less inflammation, and so so it seems like it's best to have this amount of Bacteroidetes and this amount of Firmicutes. How many different types of Bacteroidetes are there? Well, we measure 4 or 5 of them, but there's 100 or more. We don't even know. How many different types of Firmicutes are there? How many archaea are there? How many phages are there? There is so many variables that we just don't know what's going on inside the intestines. So where does that leave us? Okay, it leaves us with some really important things that we do know. And that is, if you feed the bacteria, whatever you feed the bacteria is what you're going to get. So feeding them is what you do, and you have control over that. So there are a few things that happen. One is that there are some good types of bacteria that we know should be there that don't last. They don't stay long. They're not like permanent residents. So you have to keep eating them. And one of those is lactobacillus. Lactobacillus, if you look at the types of bacteria you have, you look on the bottle of your probiotic, you're going to see lactobacillus on there. Where does that come from? Well, it comes from the air. If you have yogurt or cheese or kimchi or sauerkraut or fermented foods, a sourdough bread. You know how they make sourdough bread, or even like sauerkraut or whatever? They take flour, they mix it in water in a bowl, and they just leave the bowl out. And the next day they come back and mix it up and leave the bowl out. And then the next day they come back, they mix it up, put a little more flour in there, just like change the consistency, put a little more water in there until it starts bubbling. Why is it bubbling? Because a bunch of bacteria has fallen in from the sky and has started growing in that flour. And as it uses the carbohydrate, the starch in the flour, it starts making gas, and the gas is all the bubbly part. Well, that's what you want in bread, right? You want the bubbles. That's what makes bread. Otherwise, it's like really hard and like hardtack. So those bacteria, a lot of them are lactobacillus bacteria. Yogurt, same thing. You let the yogurt sit out, let the milk sit out, and keep it a little bit warm. And then the lactobacillus will fall in there and start growing in there, and it'll sour the milk. And then you eat, then it hardens because that coagulates the proteins, and then you eat the sour milk, right? And what is that? Lactobacillus. But if you go to the store and get yogurt in a bottle, if they keep live bacteria in there, it doesn't last long. So what they do is they pasteurize it. They kill the bacteria. And some of them say with active cultures, they add a little bit of active culture into it. Some is real yogurt, but not all of them are. And so you think you're getting some really good probiotics when you're eating yogurt, and sometimes that may not be true. And like sauerkraut, people go, oh yeah, I eat sauerkraut. Well, if you eat a bottle, you open a bottle of sauerkraut, guess what? Guess how they had to make that bottle? They had to heat it and kill all the bacteria in there. And so there's no bacteria in your sauerkraut. You think you're getting probiotics, you're not. So now you can get the refrigerated sauerkraut that is not pasteurized and not bottled and not sterilized. And that's supposed to have more of the lactobacillus bacteria. Lactobacillus is one of those things that people would get all the time. Everyone did. It was like throughout history, the peas porridge in the pot, 9 days old, that had a lot of bacteria in it. Sitting in the pot 9 days old, guess what's dropping in there? a lot of lactobacillus. And so you're eating all those bacteria. So now how do we keep our food from spoiling? Well, we heat it. We kill everything. We can everything. We pasteurize and sterilize and irradiate now. They have these, you can irradiate the food so much that everything in there is going to die. Every DNA is going to be denatured and dead. So that it's called ultra pasteurized, and you could just set your milk on the shelf and leave it for months, and then come back and drink it, and everything's fine because there's no bacteria in there. There's nothing living in it. And so, is that a problem? Well, it's helped a lot in some ways. We don't get food poisoning that often, and our food is safer in many ways. But on the other hand, we've lost a lot of those bacteria. So now what do? We take pills. We have bacteria-filled pills. So we sterilize our food and take bacteria pills. Okay, fine, that works. But think about that in your diet, your food is being sterilized. There was somebody that said, I'll never go back to McDonald's again because she had a cheeseburger that she'd bought for her kid that got set. I don't know. It was like on a shelf or something that nobody had touched it for like a year or something like that. She came back, she took it out of the bag and it looked perfect. It never rotted. There was nothing. It didn't change at all. And she goes, that's gotta not be good. That's not real food. Because if bacteria don't like it, it's probably not good for me either. The bacteria are really helpful, and we need to ingest them regularly. And so if you ferment your own food, that's a great way to do it. I've had several friends that make their own sauerkraut. I've never done that. I make my own sourdough bread, but all the lactobacillus is dead by the time I cook it in the 500-degree oven, right? So yogurt, I used to make my own yogurt. Otherwise, taking a probiotic pill is not a bad idea because that gives you lactobacillus. Why is that important? In the gut, the bacteria make certain chemicals that we need that decrease inflammation. They help the gut to work better. They help have the right types of bacteria in there. And they even help your brain. There's whole books written on the gut-brain connection and how what's really controlling your brain is your intestines. And there's a lot to that, and they give a lot of examples of how this two-way system works. The brain is talking to your bacteria, and your bacteria are talking to your brain. It's really amazing. So having the right kind of bacteria is a good idea. So number one, probiotics. And yes, it's a good idea to take pills if you're not getting your probiotics from food, because it's hard to get probiotics from food these days. Number two is, what do you feed them? And so that's called prebiotics. And prebiotics is fiber. It's not just plant fiber. Everybody thinks that, oh, that means I have to eat a lot of plants. Well, some people do really well on that. And they have, all the plant fiber gives them good bacteria, and it's growing very well and everything. But there's weird things show up. For example, they did a study on a carnivore diet. So they had people who were vegan. They tested their bacteria, and then they went carnivore in one day. So like changing from vegan to carnivore, one day. And what happened was, in one day, their bacteria completely turned around. It was a completely different set of bacteria in one day. And not only that, there were more different types of bacteria on the carnivore than there were on the vegan diet. The vegan diet has a whole bunch of different fiber and all the stuff we say, all the plant fibers that we need that are so important for our gut health and everything. And the carnivore diet had even more of a wider variety of bacteria. What the heck? What does that mean? Does that mean, because a lot of the vegan people are saying, oh, carnivore is really bad for meat's really bad for you, right? Well, no, meat just feeds different kinds of bacteria. You don't digest all the proteins in meat. You don't like the fibers in meat, like collagen fibers, are mostly not digested in your intestines, your small intestine and stomach. So they go down into the large intestine, and bacteria like that, and they eat that up. So if they have that kind of fiber instead of these plant fibers that are carbohydrates that we don't digest, then that kind of bacteria grows as opposed to the other kind of bacteria. And it's not something you have to like purposely take a specific kind of bacteria. It happens by what you feed. So what you feed is what you get. Now, what does that mean for you specifically? Because it's gotta mean something to you. And the best way I can say this is, I have had thousands of patients, and we always talk about their poop, and we always talk about how their intestines are working, and we've changed both ways in various people. I've had people tell me, oh yeah, I was vegan for 6 months, and then I went on a carnivore diet. I feel so much better. My mind woke up, and I wasn't having any brain fog. I just felt clearer and had more energy through the day. And I've had people tell me exactly the opposite, where, oh yeah, I did carnivore for a little while, but man, I was getting draggy and I wasn't working very well. And I went to a vegetarian diet, and I'm like, wow, I feel great. This is really good. And my poops have got so much better. Been having soft stool instead of these hard stools. So there's not a one size fits all. And when you read the books, you will assume there's a one size fits all. In fact, I've recommended on this program, and we talk about this in our Healthy Heart Solution Kit, that you've got to get enough fiber. And there's a book that was recommended, Fiber Fueled. And this is a book specifically written by a gastroenterologist who helps people with Crohn's disease and these inflammatory bowel diseases. And he says, clearly, the probiotics and prebiotics, fiber, plant food, that's the way to go. He doesn't say to avoid animal products. He just says, you got to get your 40 grams plus of fiber in every day, which means you're not going to have a lot of room for anything else. And for some people, that's going to be wonderful. And he's found for a lot of people, that's great. And it works really well. But it's not for everyone. And so finding what works best for you may mean switching your diet. And sometimes you might want to switch it periodically. You might want to go from being, I don't know, vegetarian and a high fiber versus having some more protein, high protein foods like eggs and fish and chicken and meat and cheese. And changing diets is not a bad thing to do either. It's actually really good for you. Now, having said that, that's where you get the different fiber things. I've been talking about all natural foods. These are whole foods. So when you're eating rice, it's whole grain rice, it's brown rice. When you're eating wheat, it's whole wheat. When you're eating any kind of foods, then it's whole foods. Now, it's really important to take into account that processed foods don't count here because they don't have the fibers, they don't grow good bacteria. And what you end up feeding is a lot of those bacteroidetes, those bad bacteria that create inflammation. So avoiding things that create inflammation, like processed sugars, carbohydrates, processed meats. So you think, oh, meat's good, therefore I can go on the bacon diet. No, bacon and sausage is processed in such a way, it has nitrates in it, and it grows different kinds of bacteria than if you're eating a whole food. So avoiding things that are processed is a very good idea for growing your good bacteria. So having said that, I hope I muddied the waters completely so that you don't know what to do. But what it gets you is, oh, try this, try that, try this, try that, until you reach a point you go, oh, you know what? This works for me. And you don't have to do it for 6 months. Do it for a few weeks or a couple of months. And if you go, wow, this is really working well for me, then you can continue on that way.
I want to make mention of this is May, it's Mental Health Awareness Month. And one of the things that we hear a lot about, especially I would say from you, maybe not from everyone, is the importance of a healthy gut biome in your mental health. The production of serotonin, all of those types of things that happen when your gut health is well. Can you speak to that a little bit?
Yes. Okay. So for mental health, man, there's a lot of research now to show that that fixing your microbiome in your gut is a good way to keep your mental health, and in a lot of different ways. People who were depressed, were they had their intestines cleaned out, and they were given bacteria from people who were not depressed, and they felt better. They stopped having depression. It really makes a difference what kind of bacteria growing in your intestines as to whether you're depressed or not. So for mental health, depression, schizophrenia has been shown. There's a difference between people that have schizophrenia in their gut health versus those who don't. Um, Alzheimer's disease, they have found the bacteria, or certain types of bacteria from the gut show up in the brain, and there are certain types that are characteristic of Alzheimer's, and other types, the anti-inflammatory ones, that are found in people that don't have Alzheimer's. So we think our bodies are sterile, our brains are sterile, our blood is sterile. No, 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 no. Bacteria are all over the place. They're everywhere. Every time you brush your teeth, the bacteria from your mouth get into your, well, through your gums because you're brushing your teeth, gets into your blood, and you can actually do a blood test and measure the levels of those bacteria from your mouth every time you brush your teeth. Every time you wipe your butt, it's the same thing. You're getting bacteria into your blood, and it's a measurable amount. And those go everywhere. This is like part of you, part of who you are. And so it's part of your mental health too. And it's really important to have good bacteria in your intestines. So growing the good bacteria is vital.
I am seeing a really big trend right now. It could just be my feed because I'm weird with gut health stuff. But all of these people that are doing parasite cleanses, and they're showing on Instagram like the things that are coming out during their cleanse. It's very fascinating.
It's
I have done it is, but I love it. It's kind of like the people that are watching Dr. Pimple Popper. I like that too. You know, we all have weird things. But what do you think about that? Is that something that's necessary for people to do? Cleanses like that?
You know what? I think so. I think so. You know, a true cleanse is when you have an empty stomach, and I think a lot of the things that people do, a lot of the cleanses that I've seen, um, uh, uh, it's you're spending a lot of money for a lot of stuff that's unnecessary. Really, periodic fasting, it's cheap, it's free, it's easy. That someone told me that the other day. He's fasting 3 days once a month, and he said, and he's never felt better in his life. And he said the coolest thing is it's free. Like
Yeah.
like I don't have to even buy food or anything. No pills to take or anything. So when people do have parasites, sometimes it's necessary to use. There's like wormwood, herbal things, or ivermectin, or other parasite cleanses often require some kind of treatment.
And then how about the uh, health of our gut as it correlates to the health of our heart? What is the connection there?
Oh, yeah, that's big too. So inflammation anywhere in the body, it affects your blood vessels. And because it affects your blood vessels, of course, it affects your heart. And so the concern about heart disease with inflammation affects um, uh, all of your blood vessels. Okay, so if you have good bacteria in your intestines that prevent inflammation or suppress inflammation, then you're going to have less vascular disease and less heart disease. And so that's an important part of preventing and fixing heart disease, is getting the good bacteria working in your intestines.
All right. I just wanted to read this from Lily. Thank you, Dr. Saunders, for the information you have provided for me on the aorta and Prinz metal angina. All of this is greatly appreciated. You are a treasure trove of useful information. I love that. That's great.
A very useful engine.
Okay, I'm going to dive into some of these questions here because this is such good information. I know a lot of things have come up. Guys, if you could use the Q&A, that's kind of the best place for me to answer or to get to those questions, or I should say to keep track of them. I know that there were some questions that came in specifically about probiotics, but before we do that, I want to quick talk about our Healthy Heart supplement. And what are your thoughts about that, Dr. Saunders? Is that a good option for someone who maybe wants to get started with a prebiotic and a probiotic, or what do you think?
The Healthy Gut supplement actually has prebiotics, probiotics, and enzymes. And so people who are having issues with digestion, absorption, then often I've recommended that for a lot of people with healthy gut. The Healthy Heart support is has things in it to help with stress and being able to dilate blood vessels. And it's more of a vascular thing and less of an inflammatory thing or probiotic thing. But the Healthy Heart support is just that. It's support. It doesn't fix it. It just supports your efforts to fix it.
Did I say healthy heart or healthy gut?
You said healthy heart, but I thought
I did. Okay. Yeah. I was like, I must have said that wrong. Okay. I was thinking healthy gut when I said it. But here's the information about healthy gut. I think almost everyone on our team uses healthy gut. My whole family does. We all use it. I really like this too. So anyway, if you want about that, this is Barton Nutrition. You can go there, bartonnutrition.com, use code webinar25 and you'll save 25%. The Healthy Heart supplement is also here. And then the other thing I want to talk about is fiber greens. What are your thoughts about that as we try to include more fiber into our diet?
Okay, so the reason we formulated fiber greens as opposed to other things is the fiber greens has multiple different types of fiber. So it has greens in it, and the powdered greens, which have their own types of fiber, and then there's specifically different types of fiber, and that's kind of the thing that's been shown with what makes the intestines healthy is feeding the different types of bacteria. So you get something called resilience in your bacteria, that you can tolerate things. You can tolerate changes in diet. You can tolerate getting antibiotics sometimes or something like that when you have resilience. And that comes from having a wide variety of bacteria in the gut.
Okay. We get a lot of people who message us and tell us that they love fiber greens. If you're someone with type 2, we mentioned this isn't something that he necessarily recommends if you're doing phase 1 of the program, only because there is a sweetener in there. It's stevia, which many people would argue is natural. It's okay. But Dr. Saunders wants to make sure that your body can tolerate things that even taste sweet, because that is not the case for a lot of people. So let me see. Okay, I'm going to stop that. Let's move on to some more questions. All right, Cardenius said, I just got my blood work results and my cholesterol did not go down. All of the other areas dropped, but not the cholesterol. What can I do? I've been following the program.
Okay, so you didn't say what your cholesterol was. Because you may not want it to go down. If it's like 230, that's perfect. You don't want that to drop. because as you drop below, well, 220, then your risk starts going up. So your lowest risk is at the 220 to 240 range. So if you're between 220 and 240, you don't want it to go down. So that may be why it didn't go down. Otherwise, I couldn't tell you for sure why. A number would help if you can tell us what your number was.
I was talking and I was on mute. 300 is her number. Sorry.
Oh, 300.
I was wondering what you were doing, and you did it with your hands.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, 300 is a little high. So why didn't it go down? That's really interesting, following the program. So that means you're adding in high fiber. So if your cholesterol is that high, it would be really interesting. What is your triglycerides? Because if the triglycerides are high also, then that may indicate a need for a cause being insulin resistance, because insulin tells the liver to make more cholesterol. So if you have high insulin levels, that could be a cause of it. In which case you would want to improve insulin sensitivity and get your insulin level down.
Okay. All right, here we go. I saw a couple questions come in. How can we possibly get 35 to 40 grams of fiber per day?
How can you possibly do that?
I added the possibly. I added possibly. They didn't say.
Yeah. How can you? Well, how? It's a work in progress. As you're working on it, you find out how much fiber things have, and you count, and you go, okay. So I've had an avocado. Okay, that's about 8 grams of fiber, and I've had an apple. That's about 3 grams of fiber, 4 grams of fiber if it's a big one. So and you add it up over time, and then you say, gee, I didn't make it. And so you can add a fiber supplement or something like that. But ideally, you want to get that from food.
And I think we've talked about this before, but like chia seeds have 10 grams of fiber and 2 tablespoons. So add that to your yogurt or just to water. Let it sit for a while, and then you have a nice little gelatinous drink. If you like boba tea, you'll like chia seed drinks. But chia seeds has a good amount of fiber as well.
I used to love the chia seeds that were in kombucha. The GT brand had some chia. Oh, that was so good. That was like a treat. Probably, yeah, it was good. Okay, Krish. Hi, Krish. The ratio of omega-6 to omega-3 varying amidst several group plant oils. How critical is this ratio, and how do you choose the best oil?
Okay. That's not easy. Choosing the best oil. Olive oil is good. It has very little omega-6 and omega-3. But the ratio, you're right, is not that good. It's like 13 to 1. Avocado oil is very similar to olive oil. Coconut oil has a little bit of omega-6, but no omega-3. So as far as using oils, the way I try to do it is there's only like very few oils that have more omega-3 than omega-6, and very few. Chia is one of them. Flax is another one. And fish, especially cold water fish, small fish. Those are really the only ways you have of getting more omega-3 than omega-6. And the reason that's important is because all the other oils, all the plant oils, they have varying degrees, but some of them, like sunflower oil and cottonseed oil and sesame oil, have no omega-3 at all, and a lot of omega-6. So they shoot up your omega-6 really quickly. And actually, canola oil is one of the better ones as far as seed oils go, and walnut oil. Grapeseed oil is not that good. So bottom line is to add in things that have high omega-3 and try to avoid things that have really high omega-6, because you can't avoid omega-6. You're going to get omega-6 no matter what you eat. But you're not going to get omega-3 unless you're specifically trying to get it. So chia seeds, flax seeds, and just like Cheryl was saying, chia is a great way to add fiber to your diet. So is flax. And use the whole seeds. Don't get like flaxseed oil. That's actually not very good because it'll oxidize really quickly in the environment. So and then eating fish. And I even take a fish oil supplement because it's just hard to get enough.
Well, look at that.
There we go. Fish oil supplement. Right on cue. You're amazing.
I know, right?
It says take 2, but can you take more? And would there be benefit to taking more?
Okay. I suspect that taking more is better. When I look at the research done on heart disease, areas where they eat a lot of fish and have even higher omega-3 than omega-6, there are certain areas like Greenland and certain areas of Japan, they have higher omega-3 than omega-6. So we're used to like 7 to 10 times more omega-6 than omega-3. And these people are reversed, and they have 1/10 the amount of heart disease as people in the United States, for example. So yeah, I would think that yes, you can take more, absolutely. In fact, in some people, I've recommended they do that because they have clotting issues and their coronary calcium score is really high. And their omega-6 to omega-3 was 10 to 1. And so I told them, you got to reverse that and get more omega. So, they're taking 4 a day instead of 2.
Great. Lots of questions about this. This is good. We've done a webinar where we went into detail about this, but maybe we need to do this again. Well, we do it a lot, I guess. We do talk about it on quite a few webinars. All right. Iman says, I have a finger monitor to measure oxygen and pulse. I get reading oxygen 96 and pulse 65 after 30 seconds with no irregularities found. Then sometimes I get low or slow pulse reading between 55 and 50 when resting. Is this okay?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Yes. In fact, for people who are working out, if their heart is very efficient, their pulse will go down into the 40s. And that's normal. Like people that run marathons, it's not unusual to have a pulse of 45 or 48. So yeah, 50 to 55. That's perfectly fine. Sometimes it'll go down, and that means your autonomic nervous system is adjusting the amount of blood flow in various ways, including changing your heart rate, changing your blood pressure. It's good.
Great. Beverly, welcome back. Beverly said, would you make any modifications for someone who has no colon? For example, drink water during a fast. And when the recommendations for diabetes and healthy heart disagree, mostly with fiber, or not fiber, but mostly with carbs and stuff probably. What are your criteria for choosing? I understand no fiber greens for pre-diabetic because of the sweet taste of stevia, but in general, at the hospital, I hear treat the diabetes last.
Wow. Treat the diabetes last. Okay. So not having a colon is a problem in many ways. So absolutely, if you don't have a colon, one of the issues is when your intestines clean out, they dump everything into the colon and the water gets all reabsorbed from the colon. And so if all of that is being dumped into a bag, usually someone has a colostomy bag, or they tend to have very loose stools and they're losing that. I might even recommend someone without a colon to not do a complete fast, that they would do like a broth cleanse. something like bone broth or a vegetable broth would be great. It's called a potassium broth, because one of the things that has to be maintained when you don't have a colon is your electrolytes. And so the sodium, potassium would be really important. And so if you don't have a colon, at least water, but I think like a broth would be probably a better thing to do. And the idea for diabetes and healthy heart, the heart, the diabetes should come first, because insulin resistance is one of the problems that causes the heart disease. So to treat the diabetes last would be to continue heart disease. Like, I don't think that would be useful. I think the first thing to do is to fix your metabolism, and that will help your heart to heal, and that will help you have more energy in your heart too. So, I think the first thing to do is to fix your metabolism, which means the diabetes.
Okay, Tommy said, I had a fast heart rate for 2 months. I made that up. Hold on. I had a fast heart rate 2 months ago, was diagnosed with SVT. I've been seeing a cardiologist. He ran all the tests, the ultrasound, the stress test, CAT scan, and now he wants to go in a month and put a stand in my heart, or a stent. Not sure why.
Wow. Well, if you're not sure why, then I'm not sure why either. Because if those, what I don't know is what those tests showed. So SVT is something that's fairly common, and unless they, in the process of doing the test, they found out that you had some blockage in your arteries or something, maybe you should get a coronary calcium score. Oh, that's what the CAT scan is, right? To show the coronary calcium score. Oh, so you might have had a pretty high coronary calcium score, in which case, what you want to do is reverse the process, the problem. The stent, if you're not having like chest pain or anything, the stent doesn't do anything at all. The only reason for putting a stent in is for decreasing chest pain. Like somebody can't walk across the room without getting chest pain, and they're 90% blocked in an artery. Then you put the stent in, and they can function. So that would be a reason for putting a stent in. And if you don't know why, then the stent can only do harm and not good. So yeah, make sure you find out why that is, and what else you can do instead.
I just want to mention, Cardinia was the one that had the 300 plus cholesterol. And I just got another message from her. It said, it took me a while to find my results, but my triglyceride went from 137 to 118.
Oh, good.
Cholesterol went from 294 to 314. So that actually went up.
294 to 314. Okay. Wonder why that is, because the triglycerides are lower. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't know. I would follow that along and see why that is, because the cholesterol by itself is not a risk factor in any way. We've talked about that before, but it's just interesting that it went up during that time. Yeah. So what I would do with a patient like that had that is I would go, well, continue on the program, and we'll retest and see where that goes.
Okay, Douglas says, sorry, it's not a gut question, but I have both CAD and stage 2 emphysema. I know that there are positive results for the CAD or CAD with fasting and the body going into autophagy. In your opinion, is there any known benefit or downside for the emphysema? I have read mixed reports, both good and bad effects of autophagy on the emphysema.
Well, yeah, I don't think I've done any research. So I don't know of any studies specifically on autophagy or fasting and emphysema. But I have seen studies that show that fasting suppresses inflammation. So if the emphysema is due to inflammation, that's a good way to suppress the inflammation. So yeah, I don't know. It's really funny with fasting how you can find positive and negative reports on everything. Like the guy that was fasting 3 days a month. He says when he tells his friends, "No, not this weekend. I'm fasting." They're like, "What? Yeah, you can't do that. That's horrible for you." And they tell him all the bad things that they've heard about fasting. Well, he says it works for me, so it's still good. I don't know.
Kathy says, will the diarrhea from metformin go away when someone is finally able to get off of it? What helps when you're still on metformin?
Okay. Gosh, if you're having diarrhea, they should take you off metformin. Your doctor should say, no, you shouldn't take that, because if someone has persistent diarrhea on metformin, then they shouldn't be taking it, because the risks outweigh the benefits. The metformin, generally people have diarrhea at first or have some intestinal problems at first, and then that goes away. But if it doesn't go away, then gosh, take berberine instead. Berberine generally doesn't have that effect and has the same benefits of the metformin. So I don't know. I might do that.
And do the diabetes solution kit. That'll be another really helpful thing to lower your sugar.
Right.
Okay. Oh, Tommy said, I've been doing the Healthy Heart program, the diet, exercise, and supplementation. My blood pressure has been going down. I've been taking their medication, but okay, so this is the same one, but they want to go and put the stent in my heart on June 5th, and I'm not down with that, but I have them put it off. I have to see him today. Oh, should I have them put it off? Okay, so this is the same person that had messaged before.
Yeah, you know what? If you're not having acute problems, that's the only reason to put a stent in. Yeah, just when you go in, just say, yeah, let's put that off. I'm trying something else.
Yeah. Okay. Ooh, couple. There's so many good questions. Okay. So this is Frank, I believe, using 2 milligrams of perinderpryl and 2.5 of amlodipine. I don't know. If I go off, if I go off one of the other blood pressure meds, my blood pressure goes up, but stays in the green zone, but pulse goes high, 90 to 105. I then have to go back on it for several days, and the pulse comes back down into the 60 to 80 beats per minute. What causes the pulse to go that high? Take aspirin daily, Januvia, and atorvastatin. That one.
Atorvastatin.
Yep. Stroke 1 year ago. Hemoglobin A1C 6.7. Glucose readings 7 to 9. I have synochroma on the way and have subscribed to the diabetes solution kit. Some vascular restriction in legs.
Okay. So what causes the pulse rate to go up is the increased circulation. So what's going on is these amlodipine and the ARB. What they do is dilate blood vessels, and so when you go off the medication, you have relatively more constricted blood vessels, and so your autonomic nervous system is correcting that by increasing the circulation, by increasing the heart rate. It's perfectly okay. The heart rate's fine. You don't need to even worry about that. And if your blood pressure is staying in the green, you probably don't need the blood pressure medications. You have to remember, that every medication we take is a toxin, and we want the toxicity. We want to stimulate certain receptors, and that's what toxins do, or block certain receptors. That's what other toxins do. And so we take small doses so that we can have a certain effect, but that's still toxic, and it still causes changes to the receptors and the biochemistry of the body. So if you don't need them, then for heaven's sakes, don't take them.
Okay, I'm gonna do one more question. Claire is 71 years old. Claire has been on the Healthy Heart Protocol, and since then, blood pressure has been going up and down. So 140/84, pulse 55, 142/84, pulse 63, 158/84, pulse 50. Are these readings considered normal? At my age, what is considered a normal blood pressure, pulse, and oxygen reading?
Okay, good question. Over 65, the optimum blood pressure is between 130 and 150. Over 70 to 80. So if you know what the optimum is, then you hear those readings and you go, yeah, most of the time you're in the optimum range. So the question we have with blood pressure is not, does it ever go up? Everybody's blood pressure goes up. I can make mine go up to 180/100, but then I can relax and bring it down, and it should go down to 120/80-ish, whatever. But as we age, we need the blood pressure to be a little higher to get the proper circulation. And so the optimum level changes with age. So anyone over 70 should have a blood pressure in the 130 to 150 over the 70 to 80 range, or 70 to 85. And so, yeah, so those are normal numbers for your age.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you, Dr. Saunders. That's it for today.
You're welcome.
See you soon.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you, Cheryl, and thank all of you
Thank
for
you,
being here
Leslie.
today. Lots of good questions. I know we didn't get to them
Yeah,
all, but
always.
come back next week. And if you, go ahead.
I just want to say, Rose asked a question. How big are the capsules? I think she was talking about the omega-3s. They're like a normal capsule size. They're not huge, but they're not small. They're medium, I would say.
I've definitely taken bigger of the omegas before. That's for sure.
Yeah. And when fasting, is it okay to drink green tea? I think so.
Yeah, as long as it's not sweet, not anything else added to it, probably.
And Dr. Saunders said coffee is good too for fasting. Actually, the taste of bitter is really good for fasting if you like coffee.
Okay. Anything else in here? Okay. All right. Thank you guys so much. We'll see you soon.
I know.
Bye.